My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back to The Experts. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. The truth, as always, has arrived. Whenever you hear my voice, you know that I'm speaking the truth, which cannot be said with so much of the media these days. And a little late getting started on the show today. I'm still in Arizona and going to be hitting the road here pretty soon. I put out on social media yesterday that if there's MAGA meetups that are going on around the country, I think I'm going to go through Texas and up through Oklahoma and Arkansas that way on my way back rather than going north. I don't know. I may go north. It just depends. If you have a MAGA meetup and it's a good size and I can come there, speak, and really talk to people. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get people, as this entire trip has been about, getting people on the same page. And so if you have something that you're interested in having me there as I travel back to New York through Arkansas, then you need to let me know. I've reached out to a lot of people, and people have reached out to me, and I'm trying to coordinate some of this stuff. So one of the things I want to talk about today is that, let me adjust my microphone here. One of the things I want to talk about today is, and I'm going to get into some sound bites here, or a sound bite here in a minute, where Ted Cruz was on The View. Ridiculous. I would rather not play a sound bite from The View, but I do think it's probably one of the best things. But what I want to talk about first is the arrest of Brad Parscale. Now, I met Brad. I think I've met him twice. He's freaking huge. That's the first thing about him. He's like 6'8". He's a gigantic guy, but he's very nice and not a bad bone in the guy's body that I've ever seen. Now, I don't know him that well. I mean, I just met him in passing, but I know a lot of people who know him, and they think a lot of him. But even if you don't, the video of him being arrested, if you don't know by now, there was really a domestic dispute. Sounds like his wife and him may have had some issues. It sounds like he was drinking and may or may not have shot a gun at some point at his home in Florida. I'm not sure. Don't know if that actually happened or not. Reports are still coming out. But as I put out on social media, it really doesn't matter what occurred. And I say this across the board. I think, a perfect example of this is in Atlanta. This is reverse in Atlanta, when you had a guy that was sleeping in his car in the drive-thru at Wendy's, and the police show up. They pull him out of they didn't pull him out of the car. They get him out of the car, park the car, talk to him for like 40 minutes as gentlemen. Very nice to this guy. And then when they tell him, he's under arrest, well, then he wants to fight him. And they end up fighting. He takes one of the tasers. He turns and points it at the officers as they're chasing him, shoots the taser. He gets shot and dies. Now, the reverse of that is with Brad Parscale. I don't know exactly what happened leading up to this. It's kind of a debate. It sounds like, and the information is going to come out. It sounds like a domestic issue with me from what I've seen and been a part of as in law enforcement and seen. But there's video that clearly shows, even though I think he had told one of the officers before that he wasn't coming out, and his wife is sitting there telling him that he's got guns in the house. When he finally does come out, there's an officer body cam where he comes out. He's got no shirt on, he just got shorts on. That's it. And he's got a beer. He's obviously intoxicated. But he actually sets the beer down and is talking with the police officer. There's no sign of violence. There's no sign of him trying to argue with the officer. He just says, I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything. He literally set his beer down and is talking to this cop. And then from around the house, you see several different police officers. I don't know if they were SWAT or they just had tack gear on. It wasn't that great a tack gear, but at least it was some tack gear. They come around and they tell him, and it lasts, I could play the video and show you. It just doesn't, and you can hear the audio to this, but it is so quick, and the way it's being reported, of course, in the news, that they're saying he didn't obey the commands that the police officers were giving him. But the reality is he didn't have any time to respond to these commands by the police officers. And all of a sudden, Joe Hotshot, the sergeant, comes up and literally it was a terrible tackle. But just tackles him, puts him on the ground. He doesn't try to fight back at all. He puts his arms up in the air. And the thing that outrages me, just listen to this, even though you can't see it. Just listen to this, how quickly from the time, and I see this a lot in law enforcement. One thing you see is when there's like several different police officers here, one person is saying, put your arms up. The other cop is telling them to get on the ground. People get confused when they're getting yelled at by several police officers like that. In this case, the cops are telling him to get on the ground, and it is within a second that the guy tackles him. He's got no weapon. His hands are up. He's got no shirt, nothing on him. He's got shorts on. You can tell he has no weapon. There was no reason to tackle Brad Parscale. Now listen, and I'm going to tell you why this angers me so much.
I'm not doing anything. Relax. What happened? So, she started saying all this shit.
Hey, get on the ground, man. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground, man.
Boom.
Jesus. Get on the ground. What are you saying?
So that's how quickly it's get on the ground, boom, this guy tackles him. And this guy's a sergeant that tackles him. Why in the world he was tackled at that point, I have no idea. It was one of the worst, most feminine tackles I've ever seen in my life. Basically, the only reason he got him down is because Brad wasn't fighting him. And again, I've met Brad and said hello to him. I don't know him. So this is not a personal thing. I see this in cases all over the place. I've seen it with white people, black people, women, men. I've seen a video where in the past, before coronavirus, where a white officer was talking to a black woman and he told her, I don't know, he was telling her, giving her commands, and he just took her and body slammed her. Absolutely inappropriate and the wrong use of force. I've seen this weekend. I've seen a police officer, a black police officer, take a woman and start fighting her and then tase her. And this is a mother whose kid was out on the football field and she's there with other people, but she didn't have a mask on. And he comes up and starts arguing with her. And the first thing is he argued with her, should have talked to her. And then he gets in a fight with her. And I talked about this on the last podcast. And then he tases her. On top of that, you have another video of officers going to a church parking lot where they're having an outdoor prayer and vigil and services outside because they can't have it inside. So they have it outside in a parking lot. And the cops come up there and arrest 3 people and manhandle them as they're arresting them. So when I see this with Brad Parscale, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it infuriates me that those of us, and I've been in law enforcement, those of us who are trying to support law enforcement that's active duty right now, there's calls for them to be defunded. There's calls for them in Minnesota, for instance, where you just talk about getting rid of police officers. There are cops being murdered because of this, the nonsensical, ridiculous idea that cops are evil and that cops are bad and that cops go around just shooting minorities. Well, as you can see through the past couple of days, that's not just the case. Although these people didn't get shot, the violence from cops can and will, the senseless violence can actually be brought upon anybody of any color, race, gender, whatever. And it's all ridiculous. It all comes from a lack of tactical exercise where they don't exercise their tactics. They only exercise the most force in any situation. And as you can see in this video, and I want you to go watch this video. I want you to go watch the video about the woman who got tased at the football game or the people that got arrested that were praying and singing in the parking lot. These are not violent offenders. And even Brad Parscale, where they're saying that, his wife said this or his wife said that, any cop, especially a sergeant who's been on the force for any time whatsoever, is going to know that these types of calls come in all the time. I used to see it in the SEAL teams. I've seen it in any environment where I've worked. The SEAL team's a perfect example. Young enlisted guy, marries some girl, They probably don't know each other as well as they should. They get married. They get in an argument. She calls the command and says, yeah, he just slapped me and he's got a grenade in the garage. Or and it turns out it's not a grenade. Maybe it's pencil flares. Or he's got ammo because he's going to the range somewhere. Oh, he's got guns and ammo in the house. Cops show up. The guy's life gets ruined. And then as it turns out, she was never hit. I'm not saying that the assault and abuse doesn't happen. It happens everywhere. Abuse happens in real world. I don't know what happened in the case of Brad Parscale, but I've seen this type of stuff over and over again. The reason I'm bringing it up, the guy's life gets ruined. The woman ends up saying, and the reality comes out where she wasn't hit, and he didn't have grenades in his garage. I've seen this numerous times. In this case, this sergeant should understand that these types of calls come in all the time. So if you've got a guy who's complying to another officer, why would you run up and tackle him when there's no reason to do that? Even if he had hit his wife, even if he did have a gun inside the house and shot it, he obviously, looking at him, has no weapon and he is complying. This is happening too often, and it's happening at a time when police officers have to evolve in their actions because everything is under the microscope. Everything. And I know people act like animals. I know people are disrespectful. I've seen it. You listen to this show, you've heard me talk about this numerous times, why police are the way they are, why they amp this stuff up. But it's got to stop. Officers have to be smarter. And dipshits like this guy who tackles Brad Parscale or these other idiots out there who are tasing moms at football games because they don't have a mask on, or arresting people in a church when you just go down the road and they're letting 5,000 people into a casino. This stuff has to stop, because what's going to happen is that the people who are backing the police are going to stop backing the police. And then that divide is going to get bigger and bigger. And that's not going to help any of this situation. You got a couple problems, and I want the cops to listen up here. You have to start standing up together against these idiot politicians and sergeants like this idiot who tackled Brad Parscale, or other officers who end up tasing somebody, tasing a woman who was not violent. Was not violent in an issue with these masks that is completely political and do nothing in an open environment. Nothing at all. Nothing. I had COVID. I know what I'm talking about. I know doctors. I know how the virus is spread. These masks do nothing in an open environment. Unless you're like just coughing and hacking with the virus, maybe it might keep some of it from spreading, but you shouldn't be there anyway. And you probably wouldn't be if you were sick. Or maybe you have a light load of the virus and you're not really showing any symptoms. It might help, but overall, the reality is this virus is spreading and there's nothing anybody can do about it. It's the way it happens in nature, and we should just be protecting the elderly people and those who have bad systems, their bodies are broken, and protect those people. That's what should be happening. Not locking old people up for good and not letting anybody see them. This ridiculousness that's going on in these Democrat I should say countries, it's like they're countries, in these Democrat states is absolutely inhumane, stupid, and communist the way that they are ruling. And nobody does anything about it. I'm telling you, cops, you got to start standing together and standing against this nonsense. The other thing is, one of these idiots goes and does something like this. I want to see it on camera. I want to see somebody stand up and say, hey, that was a total idiot move. I'm going to report that. This is what has to start happening. We need to see that you are not running in this circle of you're scared not to do what the unethical and literally constitutionally invalid acts on behalf of these politicians, and following idiots like this sergeant who tackled Brad Parscale, or the cops who tased a woman, or who arrested these. Why aren't the cops standing up and saying, we can't be arresting these people? They have a freedom by the Constitution. They have the right to worship, and we can't stop that. Where are the cops that are standing up against this? Oh, I don't want to lose my pension. Guess what? You're either going to stand up, you're either going to start standing for the Constitution, which you swore an oath to support and defend, or get out of the job. Because what's going to happen is you're going to not react over and over and over till you get to a point where the people turn on you, or the people just don't back you, and then you're going to be out on your own. You're going to be you're going to be the brown shirts at the beck and call of these leftist governors and mayors. And if you think that they're going to have your back, you're wrong. It just infuriates me. It infuriates me because on several levels, because police officers are doing this stuff, because police officers are not standing together. That's the other thing. Stand together. I mean, if there's 15 of you that feel this way, you're probably not going to get 15 people fired if you stand up correctly and say, no, this is wrong. We demand to see where the law states that we can do this. Where does the Constitution say that we as sworn police officers have to violate somebody's constitutional rights? You can't do that. You can't do it, and eventually something bad is not going to happen. And then the other thing is, why aren't you all standing up against these particular people and voicing it? The people need to hear from you. I don't care if it's 1 or 5 or 15 or 30 police officers. We need to hear from you. I'm telling you, your voice matters. And if you speak out against this stuff and you say it's not right, yes, I was a cop, I was an FBI agent, I was an air marshal, but I'm not on the job anymore. We need to see somebody in uniform say, no, this is not going to happen. You can't do this. I want to see some body cam footage of people standing up. I want to see some body cam footage of cops standing in front of Black Lives Matter, a Marxist organization, or Antifa, a terrorist group. Really, they're all terrorists. Where I want to see the camera footage of police standing up against them and saying, no, this is nonsense. Or telling their superiors, what are we doing? We're out here allowing, listen to this. There are officers in Portland that are now blind because they were lased in the eyes with people who had very dangerous lasers and were purposely putting it in their eyes from a distance to blind these police officers. Where are the cops that are standing up to their superiors and saying, this is crap? We need to go out. This is literally imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury. That is, by the Supreme Court, is the standard reached for deadly force. Why don't we see body cam footage of police officers saying, no, I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to stand up against these people if you're not going to back me to keep me from getting injured or killed? There's cops that are being killed. There's cops that are being injured. And I don't see any police officers in uniform standing up and saying, this is bullshit. And I'm tired of it. I go out and I put myself out there, and so do millions of other people. We go out there, we take time out of our day like we should be, and we go in and we stand for the blue. We go to, some people drive for hundreds and hundreds of miles to get to these protests, or they're really not protests, they're rallies for you, police officers, for you. To make sure that you understand that you are backed. It's not just about standing up against the left. It's about supporting you. Where is your voice? That's what I'm asking. When are you going to start standing up for yourself? And I'm talking about together. I'm talking about verbally. I'm talking about in uniform, saying this is nonsense. This is what we're being told to do. Because you know what? You know what happens? The nonsense of the left, people in uniform have no problem saying something. You saw all these people during these protests, FBI agents in gear that say FBI. You had a bunch of women out there. You had a bunch of effeminate male FBI agents taking a knee and symbolizing taking a knee against the Constitution and the national anthem. That's where that all started. You had police officers, chiefs of police, laying on the ground as though they were handcuffed. The dumbest thing, NYPD super chiefs, that's the big chiefs that run the NYPD, taking a knee with terrorists from Black Lives Matter and Antifa, taking a knee and holding hands with them. Where are the rest of the cops? NYPD, you think you're so badass. You call yourself the greatest police force in the world. I know so many detectives from the NYPD. You got your badges out there. You say it's the most recognizable badge that there is. Always in the movies and so on and so forth. Where's your voice? You guys all sit around like you're Billy Badass talking this crap about how bad the mayor is or how bad these commissioners, these chiefs are. Where's your voice? Risk it. Because you know what? We're risking ourselves for you. And I can guarantee you the majority of you big mouth freaking egomaniacs out there, yeah, that's what I'm calling you. And I work with you guys. I love you. But your ego's got to be checked because you think, we're going to go out there. And I've seen this when I've gone to these Back to Blue rallies. We go out there, we speak, we talk, we supporting you guys. And then Antifa or these idiots show up from Black Lives Matter. They show up. And the police, they literally stand there and look at both groups as though they're both bad. Now, and that's not always the case, but I'm saying it's a majority. I've been to several of these, and it's the majority of the case. Fort Collins, Colorado, they actually had a Blue Lives Matter rally. Antifa shows up, picks a fight. They got their asses handed to them, and the chief had them, and the cops arrested the Blue Lives Matter people, and the chief goes on social media bagging on them, talking about we will not have people come out here with the Blue Lives Matter shirts and this and that and start a ruckus. They didn't start a ruckus. Where are the Fort Collins police officers standing up and saying, no, that's not what happened. I saw what happened. That's clearly what happened was Antifa showed up there, these little effeminate weirdos, and they started a fight. The police weren't there to stop it. Now, did I hurt your egos? I hope I did. Because what's going to happen if you don't start standing up for yourself and saying this is nonsense? We cannot violate the Constitution. We can't violate these people's rights. We can't have people that are non-violent offenders being tackled and tased. And this is over a mask or over a domestic disturbance call, which actually could turn out very violent. But I don't know how many cops are listening to this. How many of you had hundreds, thousands of those calls? Probably one of the most common call you can get. And if you have the luck to show up where the guy has no shoes, no shirt, wearing shorts, hands visible, how many of you would actually tackle that individual if he was complying? I guarantee if they told Brad, turn around, put your hands behind your back, let us cuff you for our safety, and then we'll uncuff you once we get to the point when we complete our investigation. I guarantee he probably would have turned around. And even if he didn't, at that point, if he escalated it, there's like 5 cops around there in full tack gear. They could have taken him down. It sickens me. But I've seen this happening. I've seen it get to a point where police officers stay on the job so they can get a pension. Get out. I've had cops tell me right to my face, I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to get involved because I don't want to, I want to retire. You got in the wrong job, man. That's what happened. You got into the wrong job. And right now it's different than it was even a year ago. A year ago, you let the animals destroy themselves. Now it's not the case. The country is melting. It's crumbling. People are afraid. Good law-abiding citizens are afraid. The last thing they need to see is law enforcement not showing that they understand and that they're a part of the community. We're not talking about gangbangers that go around shooting. Go to Chicago. Look at what's happening there. It's just freaking death and destruction, black on black crime. Then you go and watch these videos where people are doing nothing. And they're getting tackled to the ground, tased, and arrested for praying. I'll say it one more time. It's coming down the pipe. Cops, if you don't start respecting the public, take that stance when you go out there and stop with this nonsense of looking at every single incident as, oh, I'm just going to tackle whoever. I'm just going to listen. It is a problem. And the way that you stop it is, one, start realizing that you are being recorded in everything you do. Everything. And two, now is the time to start looking at situations and saying, this does not call for violence. Listen, somebody comes at you with a car and you shoot them, and then they pull them out of the car and they have no weapon, which the car is a weapon. We all know that. And it's reported that you shot an unarmed person. I will stand behind you through thick and thin. Let's say that you go and you're chasing, which I've seen video of this before. Actually, I think I was on CNN chasing some guy in the dark. You come around the corner and the idiot picks up his cell phone and points it at you. I don't know what he's trying to tell, hey, look, I just called 911 or whatever, and he gets shot and killed. That's his fault. That's a good shoot. And I will stand with you through thick and thin. But this nonsense about what's going on now, it's got to stop. And you need to realize, in the case of Atlanta, where the cops did everything they should have done. I even say the shoot was a good shoot. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. Let the guy run off. And how am I going back and saying this after I'm saying you got to do what's right? You're in the wrong job if you don't want to be involved. What I'm saying is you have to start thinking your way through this stuff. Who is going to back you? Who is not going to back you? You need to start standing with those that do back you and standing against those that don't. And in Atlanta, when those cops shot that guy, it was clear. If you knew about Atlanta and their chief of police and the mayor there, they're not going to back you. If you have a mayor that is not going to back you, if you have a chief of police that is not going to back you in a good shoot, do not shoot. Why should you put yourself on the line to go to prison when the guy that stole your taser is the one who should either be in a body bag or be in prison himself? And you do what's right. The point of this, the whole bottom line of all of this, is that if you back the people who are backing you and you stand against those who are not backing you and who are trying to get you to violate the constitutional rights of the citizenry of this country, you're actually going to be fine if you do that. It's the other way around where things go bad. You violate constitutional rights. You tackle people who aren't being violent. I don't care, black or white. I don't care. You put meatheads and promote them to sergeant, and then you guys sit around and don't say anything when they do something stupid. I don't care if the guy's your best friend. It's on camera now, and you're all being judged. It infuriates me. It infuriates me because good men and women that are on the force, that are thinking their way through these problems and are doing the right thing, those idiots, those few idiots that do this stuff, it's being broadcast everywhere. And then the rest of you who are good are not standing up for yourselves because you don't want to lose your pension, because you don't want to get fired. It's going to go bad if you don't start standing up for yourself. I'm telling you. Now, before all the haters out there, freak out and say, oh, Lord, listen to what he's saying, like he's not supporting law enforcement. That's not the case. But people have to start thinking their way through this. You all as police officers, your job is to enforce the laws and to protect the public. Your job is not to go around like a hall monitor who was recruited from the WWE. That is a mistake that you started believing. We no longer tell people you need to protect yourself. We've led people to believe that the police are the only ones who can protect them. in many of these states around the country. Not true. Police have taken on a role of protectors that they were not intended to take on. We live in a free society. I take the responsibility of protecting myself and my loved ones very serious. But in New York, you protect your family from an intruder, well, you may actually go to jail for that. And somebody I know went to, in Arizona here, they went to, I wish I had the name of this concealed weapons carry course. And the guy who's the instructor there was telling them, if somebody breaks into your home and you're in your home and they steal your TV, but they're not attacking you, you can't shoot them. The very fact that somebody would be in your home after they broke into your home is, to me, an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury. I don't care if they have a gun or not. You don't know how good of a fighter they are. You don't know if they have some training. You don't know if they have a knife or a gun secreted in their waist somewhere. When do we get to this point where that's what's being taught in a concealed weapons carry course? That if somebody comes in and they got a TV in your hand, unless they're attacking you with the TV, you can't shoot them. They're in your house. Well, how do we get to this point? Especially in Arizona, I was shocked by that. Law enforcement has taken on roles that it was not intended to take on. They've taken on a persona that they should never have taken on. You're not the enforcers, all right? You don't go around like brown shirts for Hitler beating people up, because even if they're breaking the law, if they don't show a threat of violence. That's just not what that's not what you were meant to be. That's not what police and law enforcement was created for. Look at the word, look at the name of it. Law enforcement. Police. To police the community. To enforce the laws. Not to show up and manhandle everybody because you're in charge. That is not what you were intended to be. And on the flip side of that, the people were not intended in this country to be weak. But the way law enforcement makes it out to be is though, and you see this with terrorist issues, you see this with gang issues, you see this with crime issues or whatever. When they show up, I've seen it. I've been a part of it. Tell people, hey, shut up and go over there, go over there and get away. They treat the public as though they are 5 years old and the parent rushes in to check things out. Now, I'll give police this. A lot of the times that is about the intelligence level of most people when it comes to a lot of these issues. Go to the airport. You'll see people act stupid as all get out. But see, this is the dilemma. Police officers have sold into this, and so is the community. So people act stupid, the cops treat them stupid. Then the people get pissed, and then the cops get more amped. It's a breakdown in the entire system of the citizenry in this country. But yes, the citizenry has a lot of work to do, that's for sure. Don't know if we'll ever make it back. But police, I'm telling you right now, law enforcement officers, my brothers and sisters, you have to realize if you're on the job, now is a very critical time. You have to start realizing everything is recorded and the dumbasses need to be pushed to the side and they need to be scolded. And I do believe this stuff needs to happen on camera. The people need to see it. They need to see that you're realizing, okay, we have been told in order to overstep our boundaries. We need to see that. We need to see you say this politician is an idiot and they're a leftist and we cannot go against people's constitutional rights. We need to see that. You do that, you're going to be backed. I'm telling you right now. We need to see it. And you all need to do it together or get out of the job. One or the other. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. I want to play this sound bite. But let me say this one other thing. Again, I know I'm going to get haters because of this. I know people are going to say you're coming down too hard on police. Listen, I'd rather come down hard on you now and risk some of you not liking me and have police officers who are in the job, and you don't realize this when you're in the job. A lot of times you just think that you're being screwed over, and the public is full of idiots, and by and large you're right in a lot of ways, but I don't think that you realize the reality of what's happening and how the people back you and how we will continue to back you and how you aren't separate from us. You're not. Wait till you retire. You're going to see you're not separate from us. You are a citizen. You are just charged in a job where you are to enforce the laws and police the community. But you're not the enforcers. Your job is not to go around and bully people. And it is more evident now when it happens than ever before. And all of you that want to hate on me for saying this stuff, remember, my love for law enforcement, I was law enforcement. I know where they're coming from. I've been there. But stop backing the police that do this stuff. Don't be afraid to tell people, just like politicians. Don't worship people. If somebody is tasked with a job or they take on that job, they should be held to a standard. If they violate that standard, then they should be called out. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't mean that you're trying to kill their career. It doesn't mean that you hate cops or your favorite politician. Hold them to a standard. Stand with them. And if they do something that violates the Constitution or that becomes this ridiculous, tell them. Just like I want the cops to stand up, I need the citizens to stand up. And don't come down on people when they say, whoa. I mean, there's a big difference between somebody calling out cops for tackling somebody who's not armed and like Black Lives Matter, where they take every single shooting of a black man by a cop and they make it into a criminal act when it's not. Most of the shootings, black or white, that happen by police, almost 100% of them are the result in felonious activity, or the resulted from felonious activity by the individual, and then they want to fight the cops. They try to run over the cops. They try to shoot them, or in the case of when they may not be armed, they are still involved in a felonious activity, and they provoke the officer to fire, just like the incident where I saw where they were chasing this guy who had been inside somebody's home, was not invited. He broke into the home. They're chasing him. He runs around the corner of the house, pulls up a cell phone as though he's saying, hey, I don't have a gun. I have a cell phone. He got shot. That's not the cop's fault. But Black Lives Matter, and these people will make that seem like it's their fault. It is, I can't say this enough. It's imperative. It's imperative that we all start taking responsibility. And if people are standing with you, officers, look, if you're still on the job, you need to start standing up for yourself. And you need to start realizing that people see it. They see it, and it's a very important thing. But you as citizens, don't be afraid to point out the fact, because I really do believe that the officers need to hear this, because the other thing it does, it gives them pause so that they will realize they're being watched, that we want them to do what's right. We want to see it. And then we will back them. Goodness knows it goes the other way around. It goes the other way around. You get some protests, which I don't understand, these protests where they get to put their hands right in police's face when they are provoking them, when they say this is the line, and they push the line, and they don't do anything. These protesters, they're rioters. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you should be able to show up with your faces covered while violence is happening, and the police should not be able to respond to that. That's totally different. The people need to start getting involved in this. And law enforcement officers need to start realizing that it is visual. We are seeing it. And we stand with you. We need you to stand with us. Okay, I won't say any more about it. Let's take a break real quick. We're going to come back. I'm going to play this little bit from The View, which is sickening, and then that'll be it. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I know you've heard me talk about my best-selling book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, but did you know there's 2 workbooks that go with it? Yes, they are fillable workbooks. What you do is you read Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, or you get the audiobook. You get the concept, you understand the technique of attack and defend. Attack, how does an attacker look at you? What vulnerabilities do they exploit? What avenue of approach will they take? It shows you how to look at yourself from that perspective. Once you get that, you can then flip the switch to go to defender mode. You know that this vulnerability could be exploited, you eliminate it. You know this avenue of approach to be taken, you mitigate it. The workbooks are where you actually do this on your life, on your business, on your school, on your church. Divide it up into sectors and look at each sector individually from the attacker's point of view. You take that information and you use it to build your defenses in the defense assessment workbook. There's nothing else out there like this. Nothing. For the children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. It's a book of pictures with safety and awareness and communication lessons built in, and the parents go to teamlittlebigs.com or teachers, and you get the lesson plans. You give the book to the child, a young child or learning disabled, and the parent sits back and says, what do you think about this? What is this lesson? Or maybe you shouldn't play behind a car. Maybe you should feel the slide to make sure it's not hot before you go down it. All these lessons are in there, and the lesson plans will guide the parent or teacher. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, and Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Go get them all wherever books are sold, and let's get back to the show. So I'm going to play this ridiculous. Oh, by the way, it sounds like Mayor Bill de Blasio was sideswiped by. This is one of the greatest stories I've ever heard in my life. New York has these idiot dads who ride around on these scooters. Now, I had a scooter accident several years ago. They're deadly if you're not careful. That's the little two-wheel scooter, electric scooters that they rent in around cities. I had my own because it's too expensive to drive around or take a cab everywhere. Literally, I was spending $10,000 a year in cabs. So I got a scooter, drove that thing 800 miles straight into a hole, and was thrown from it and tore my quad tendon off my right knee. But one of the things I used to see are these idiot liberal dads driving around Manhattan with their kid on the scooter with them. It's highly dangerous for yourself when you throw a kid that's standing there with you. It's almost virtually impossible to control these things in a rapid fashion if something happens. Sounds like Mayor Bill de Blasio was crossing the road, probably high, didn't realize where he was going, and some dad with his daughter on it sideswiped him, hit his arm, nothing happened. And the dad and the daughter fell off the scooter and got slightly injured. It's like liberal versus liberal. Stupidity. Injury is going to happen usually to the American public. Okay, so that was one stupid story. So this is the soundbite that I'm wanting to play. Ted Cruz is promoting a book. So he goes on The View. And I have to tell you, I try not to be a judgmental person. God did not put me on this earth to judge. He's the judge. But I do allow people who, I don't think it's judging when people exert certain characteristics and you just point those characteristics out. Joey Behar, or however you say her name, is perhaps one of the biggest idiot leftists on TV. She just typifies what I hate about New York City. There's a lot of things I love about New York City. She typifies everything that I hate about it. Whoopi Goldberg, right there with her. Idiot comedians who somehow become recognized as influential voices. I don't know how that occurs, how we got to that point. It'd be the same if during King and Queens, the people who used to juggle in front of them with the Joker hat on, all of a sudden they are the influencers. That's what these people are. You need to realize that. Joey Behar was somebody who wore blackface before, criticizes everybody for wearing blackface. You criticize her, she says, no, I was supported by the black community. What? So anyway, Ted Cruz goes on this show promoting his book, and it's worthless. I don't know why Ted Cruz would go on this show. It's like the president going and sitting down with Bob Woodward. Nobody's going to buy Ted Cruz's book because he's on this show. Just like nobody that likes President Trump and will vote for him gives two craps the fact that what Bob Woodward has to say. And you think the people who actually listen to Bob Woodward they're going to change their mind, or that the president's going to validate himself in their eyes? No, Why would you go and do those interviews? But anyway, this is a perfect example of the hypocrisy of the left in this interview with Ted Cruz. Let's just play a little bit of that.
So, Senator, just a few minutes ago, you said, and correctly, the country is suffering. There are many people out of work, but you would like to open safely, follow the science, protect small business, and all of that. But Republican Florida Governor DeSantis, for example, recently lifted all coronavirus restrictions on businesses, allowing bars and restaurants to open at full capacity without a mask mandate. He said they won't be closing anything going forward. Now, what's your response to Governor DeSantis's policy, one, and would you do the same thing in Texas if you could?
Now, let me just say this before Ted Cruz answers that question. Her voice is worse than big, huge fingernails on a chalkboard. It literally makes my skin crawl listening to her. Having to watch her in this soundbite is literally like being slapped in the face while you hear somebody scratch their fingernails on a chalkboard. She's hideous, a hideous human being, and a hideous comedian, a hideous talk show host, and her voice is hideous. She is hideous. I don't know why Ted Cruz would come on here. But let's listen to what he says.
So, yes, we should reopen. And I actually think if you look at Florida, if you look at Texas, the death rates have been much, much lower there than, for example, states like New York, New Jersey, states with Democratic governors where the death rates have been enormously through the roof. New York in particular has led the country in death rate. And I think it had a lot to do with the Democratic governor there, Governor Cuomo, sending people who had COVID into nursing homes.
And that is absolutely true, but I got to be critical of Ted Cruz on here. All you have to do is point out the death rate versus the infectious rate in and around this country between March and May. That's all you got to point out. Look at the death rate versus the infectious rate. Both of them skyrocketed at the same time they put elderly COVID positive patients into elderly homes. They both skyrocketed. As soon as they stopped doing that to the extent that they were, I think they're still doing it in some places, which is mind-boggling to me. But as soon as they stopped that, the infection rate and the death rate plummeted. And then when everything started to open back up, the infection rate skyrocketed to, astronomical amounts, but the death rate did not. Because ultimately, it's not that deadly of a virus, with the exception of elderly and people with pre-existing conditions. And you're not going to stop it. You're not going to stop it. You either bankrupt the whole country by making everybody stay inside. The masks don't do anything. You can make everybody wear masks 24 hours a day. It's not going to stop the virus. There's no proof that there is. The only proof it comes from anywhere about the masks is these mysterious fact checkers on social media who will shut you down for saying something or tweeting something or posting something against the masks, which is they're probably connected directly to the left. But that's all Ted Cruz would have to point out. But he tries to explain it. It's not going to work. They're telling him that he's wrong. He's absolutely right. But you can't. You're not going to be able to debate these people. Why go on this show?
Well, the death rate is 3 times as high as the death rate in Texas or Florida. I'm sorry?
I'm talking about Florida right now, not New York. New York got hit very early, and a lot of people were coming in without any kind of sanctions.
But does she think that New York is the only place where people fly in internationally? It's not. Florida and Miami especially, tremendous amount of people flying in there from international. California, Texas, Houston is one of the biggest places where international flights come into because of the tech industry there. You didn't see it. You didn't see Florida. You didn't see Texas with this skyrocketing death and infectious rate because they didn't put people that were elderly, that were COVID positive into these elderly, quote unquote, rehab clinics. There's nothing rehab about them. So she's lying, and she's trying to divert it to just insulting Florida and the governor there, but she's also lying, saying that New York got it early on because of the people that were coming in there that were positive. And then Whoopi Goldberg has to throw her 2 cents in here. Let's listen to this idiot.
The government
Tell me
policy
what
was
you think
different,
is
and
of
the policy made a
Republican
difference.
governor.
The government
let's hear what you
policy
think
was
about
different, and the
DeSantis.
policy made a difference.
fine.
The policy of the governors of New York and New Jersey of sending people who were COVID positive into
Deflection.
nursing homes was catastrophic, and it resulted in
deflecting,
a
sir.
horrific death rate. No, I'm saying we should actually
You are
listen to sound
deflecting the
science and
question. Go
protect people
forward.
and keep them safe.
Let me jump in here. It's a slight pivot here.
I'd like to jump in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Whoopi.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say I do want to point out that had the man who is running the country right now given us this information in January when he had it, when we could have maybe done something a little differently, it might have worked differently. I just wanted to point that out.
She just wants to point that out. See, this is another BS statement because the president, while he was trying to keep people from panicking, wasn't the one that was going out like de Blasio, like Cuomo, like their medical czars, like the governor in Pennsylvania or in California, where they were telling people to go out, go to Chinatown. That's what they were telling them in New York. Go to Chinatown, have dinner and a movie. They are responsible for downplaying it. And not just downplaying it, but telling people to go out and do this. Instead of telling people, we don't think it's anything major right now. We think, let's try to quarantine. Let's try to wear the mask. This is early on. Let's do what we can to try to keep this from spreading. But right now, we're not at a point where we have to be extremely worried about it. It hasn't shown that it's blown up here. You didn't hear that from people. You didn't hear that. You heard them talk about how it's not only not bad, you should go out. That's what the mayors and the governor said. That wasn't the president that said that. The president was trying to keep people from absolutely freaking out and losing it. And I get it. But the president can only go so far. The mayors and the governors, those are the people, and these medical czars, the weirdest group of people I've ever seen in my life. They're the ones who should actually be in their individual states, because different states are different. Populations, transient population, it's different in different states. And they're the ones who should have been talking to the people and saying, we need to be cautious, but right now there's no sign of it. It could get worse. This is what we've seen. You think that governors and mayors in big cities don't have the information that the president has? Listen, I'll put it to you this way. You go anywhere around the world where major incidents are happening, somehow, some way, NYPD detectives are going to be there. That's because NYPD has detectives all over the world. Don't know if you knew that or not. They have like their own little mini CIA, and they're all over the world. And oftentimes, they actually know something before the federal government knows it. And you think that a Democrat mayor of New York isn't going to share that information with other Democrats? You're kidding yourself. Let's continue.
It's not about whose people died more. People died, and they.
Oh, it's not about that, Whoopi. It's not about whose people died more. So, in other words, they're condemning the governor of Florida for opening things back up, and they're condemning him because of the potential that they think it's going to infect and kill large numbers of people. But yet, when Ted Cruz points out that in these Democrat-led states, that putting elderly people who are COVID positive into the elderly clinics killed an enormous number of people. That's not important. That's what Whoopi Goldberg's saying. Freaking idiots.
Didn't have to. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I just wanted to really.
And such a smug idiot at that. These people just drive me nuts. They're not, the only thing they influence is crap. It just spews out of them. And what's crazy about it is they're so narcissistic. They truly believe that what they're saying is a reality. No matter if they're lying or skewing, they think they're right and they think the other side is wrong. And it's as if they have been completely hypnotized or deranged.
Quick ask Senator Cruz, just a day
I don't know
after
who
the
this
late
chick
Justice
is.
Ginsburg laid in state at the Capitol, Senate Republicans started selling notorious ACB T-shirts. Do you think that was in poor taste, considering that Justice Ginsburg had a career to build up that status?
This is literally some of the most idiotic conversation I've ever heard. I mean, They're talking about how was it offensive because somebody put a T-shirt out there talking about how Barrett is notorious and giving her cred for being a judge now nominated to the Supreme Court, and saying how Ginsburg earned that reputation over a long period of time. Now, Ted Cruz, I got to tell you again, not happy about the way he comes about this, because, listen, I'm going to say it. I've said it publicly. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a part of a Supreme Court that is responsible for the murder of over 60 million souls in this nation. She is a notorious murderer. Trust me, folks, you go out and you convince somebody to go murder somebody else and the police find out about it, you're going to be charged as an accessory to murder. Look at Charles Manson. He spent the rest of his life after he went to court. He spent the rest of his life in prison, and he never murdered anybody. He didn't do those killings. He convinced other people to do them. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not a hero. She's a murderer. And so is the Supreme Court that allowed that to happen. Period. Listen to what Ted has to say.
That the faces aren't just interchangeable.
Well, listen, I knew Justice Ginsburg. I argued in front of Justice Ginsburg in the court 9 times. She was brilliant. She was a legendary Supreme Court advocate. And
she's a murderer, Ted. She's a murderer. That's how ridiculous politics is in this country. I would like to hear what Ted's opinion is about Mao, Chairman Mao of China, or Marx, or Lenin, or Stalin, who are responsible for millions and hundreds of millions of deaths. Are they a hero? Are they extremely brilliant? What's the difference? Born versus unborn. That's what the difference is. Same bad, evil decisions, same loss of life. It's just that some of them were not born yet.
By any measure, is one of the most consequential justices in history. You know what I would encourage you. I recognize the host of this show. Y'all's politics are different than mine, and I think it's actually good we're having a conversation. Too often, left.
No, it's not. See, I can't stand this. I can't stand the fact that Ted Cruz is pandering like this. It's no use, Ted. There's no use in having these conversations anymore. The left doesn't care. The left does not care. They want to overthrow their Constitution. The left doesn't care. They don't care about babies, unborn children being killed. The left doesn't care the fact that I saw this incredible thing on LinkedIn of all places today. I think it's a cop put it up there, and it said, if you take red ants and black ants, the red ants that are the fire ants out in Arizona, and you put them, 2 bottles of them on the ground together, the ants will mill about and they will not attack each other. But if you take those ants, scoop them up in a bottle and shake the bottle real hard and then put it on the ground, those ants will then fight until the death, not realizing who the enemy is. It's not each other. It's the person that was shaking the bottle. I thought it was fascinating when I heard that. Ted, the left is not interested in hearing your pandering. And the same with the rest of you. You can have conversation after conversation. If somebody approaches you and they want to have a legitimate conversation because, they're wanting to try and find the truth, by all means, have the conversation. But nothing he's going to say to these leftist weirdos who don't have a freaking ounce of consciousness in their brain, nothing he is going to say is going to make a difference.
Right, don't talk to each other and we just kind of yell at each other. And one thing I would suggest, if you want to understand why so many millions of Americans care passionately about the Supreme Court and about justices who will protect free speech and religious liberty in the Second Amendment, I would encourage you actually to read the book I just came out with.
Now, that's why he came on this show, okay? That's why he came on this show, to plug that book. Look, I plugged my own book. I just had a commercial a few minutes ago about my book. Now is not the time to be plugging your book on a show like this. Nobody's going to buy your book on this show, Ted. Nobody's going to buy it. Nobody cares from The View. But I find it very interesting. Watch how quickly they cut him off.
Away. Even if you're not going to agree with it, I would just encourage it. because I think it will help.
We want to
help folks understand
I know you're
why,
going to think
why
I'm doing
religious
this on
liberty
purpose,
is
but
so
I'm
important.
not.
Free
We
speech
have
is so
to say
important.
thanks to Senator Ted Cruz, his new book, One Vote Away.
So there you go. That's how quickly they turn you off. If you're a conservative on there and you plug a book, they're going to turn you off almost immediately. It's ridiculous. Why would you go on that show, Ted Cruz? Why? Ugh. I want y'all to know that I take this role of bringing you the truth very seriously, just like when I was given a badge and a gun and told to go out and police the streets. I take it very seriously. And if I criticize law enforcement for doing something like arresting a mom at a football game because she doesn't have a mask and tasing her, or arresting parishioners of a church in a parking lot for singing and praying, when I criticize you, I'm trying to get you to understand, officers, that you are being watched. And it's not just imperative that you do what's right. It's imperative that you stand up against the left. Together, we need to see that. I don't just want to know that you feel it. I want to see it. It needs to happen now. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.